Hello and welcome to my channel. Here I review movies and today's film is The Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. That is an absolute mouthful, so from now on I will be calling it Kingdom. Kingdom is a fantasy adventure film that continues the Planet of the Apes franchise after the death of Caesar. Noah, a young chimpanzee, goes on an adventure to save his tribe and finds himself teaming up with an orangutan and a human. Together they take on the ape leader Proximus and his kingdom of apes. Josh Friedman wrote the story and Wes Ball directed the film, which stars Owen Teague as Noah, Freya Allen as May, and Kevin Durand as Proximus. Just as a heads up for those of you who aren't familiar with the franchise, you don't need to be to enjoy this film. They give you all of the relevant backstory, and the story itself isn't directly connected to any of the previous films. They simply take place in the same world. To begin, let's start with the kingdom's strongest point, its visuals. This story takes place in a beautiful, lush world that's seemingly untouched by humans. There's forests, mountains, waterfalls, and even some oceanside beachfront. There's practically a natural wonder in every single scene, and the story makes incredible use of it. You get to see the apes swinging around, fighting, running, and doing all sorts of wacky stuff. They even have their own little ape societies complete with individual culture. Like Noah's tribe raises eagles to hunt fish. It's neat. They also did an incredible job of detailing the apes and making them look human-like in their movements and expressions. You get some great emotional moments from Noah and his tribe as they grieve their losses and as they discover the world humans left behind. There are also lots of standout moments in the form of big chases, feats of strength, and a couple of simple but impactful fights. They did especially well with the climbing moments. They had these big spiraling shots of the apes rapidly ascending different structures to avoid danger. These scenes were a lot of fun, had an intense energy to them, and really captured the grand scope of the narrative. The animation work as a whole was something to see and was easily my favorite part of the film. For the story, they present a fairly basic hero's journey. It comes with all of the classic cliches, some simple characters, and a little bit of backstory about the world they live in. There's a bit of action, humor, and drama along the way, and they do it all fairly competently. There's a few minor idiotic moments that the film could do without, but they're not big enough to care about. One example was during the climax. They went for the rule of cool to finish up the big fight, but there was a dozen other much simpler ways for that fight to end. It was fun to watch, but a bit of a head scratcher. The cast does a good job with the material as well. Most of what you get is animation work with voice actors supplying the vocals. There's a lot of ape speak, which means a lot of huffing, grunting, and screeching along with harsh guttural speech. The VAs managed to create distinct human-adjacent voices while still injecting a ton of emotion into the dialogue. There's also two human actors, William H. Macy and Freya Allen. Both of them play a fairly important role in the film and do them well, but they don't get a lot of screen time. Freya Allen gets more than Macy, but also doesn't speak until the second half of the film. They both show off a lot of charisma and good emotional work. For the soundtrack, they used a lot of generic orchestral instrumentals. They used them to back the emotional journey and to emphasize big moments. And to that end, the music does a good job. It's light, adds a bit of emotion to the scenery, and doesn't interfere with the dialogue in any way. On the flip side of things, the film does have a few problems, and feels kind of lacking as a whole. The biggest problem is how hard it is to connect with the story. The ape characters take the lead in this film, and it can be hard to get invested in them. They live like primitive humans, don't speak that much, and are a bit bland as characters. They're generic young heroes without much personality. They're normal people with normal ambitions, and Noah's a bit smarter than the average ape. Other than that, he doesn't have any defining features. He's not funny or weird, he doesn't have any strange hobbies, he's just a vehicle to experience the story through. This leaves his actor Owen Teague without much to do, and he wasn't the only one. None of the actors really got the chance to stand out with their performances. The human characters weren't given enough to do, and most of the conversation between the ape characters was non-verbal. The few times they did have the voice actors express a big emotion, they absolutely nailed it, but they wouldn't let them make any big speeches or really emote. No big crying scenes or angry outbursts, just basic conversations. Visually, the film is really dark. Every single scene, day or night, is just 2 or 3 shades darker than it should be. It's like they threw a filter over the whole film and it just makes everything look a little worse than it should. I found myself struggling to pick out specific objects during the night scenes. Sound-wise, the film just isn't memorable in any way, and doesn't stand out at all. It uses the same basic tracks that every halfway decent adventure film uses, and it manages to get them in the right spots. They work, but you'll have forgotten all of them within 5 minutes of leaving the theater. Personally, I enjoyed the animation work and the natural landscapes, but found the actual story to be kind of boring. Noah's an okay character, and everything May was doing was interesting, but I struggled to get invested in their journeys. The film just never gives you a real reason to care. As for the rating, I thought the film was decently produced, even if I didn't enjoy it as much as I would have liked. I would give this film a 6 out of 10. Remember, these are just my thoughts on the film. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Bye-bye.